Welcome back, gang. We're looking at a combination scenario setup. And we really just wanted to have a look at the maps and see where the forces were laid out and get a feel for the victory conditions and all the rest of it. I'm probably not going to play this in the immediate short term. I just wanted to get a feel for how things look. It's the Great Campaign to the American Civil War, and it has the modules I have laid out are used in this, the Long Roads to Gettysburg. It's a homemade scenario by Kenneth Lee. And I don't know Ken specifically, but he's done a lot of work here on building a campaign for the Gettysburg situation. And it starts all the way down here on the Rappahannock River, which is south of Washington, pretty significantly. I'm trying to think of what cities down here I may have been to that I would know, but I don't see any. I have not been on the East Coast other than New York type stuff, although I have been to the Gettysburg battlefield, but this is way, way away, and I'll show you in a sec. So look, a lot of the original, the scenario starts all the way down here, right? So there's a number of different Union corps here: 6th, 5th, 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 12th. So there's a lot of enemy force concentrated around this section of the river. This is the groups or corps of the Confederate forces. And there's some cavalry for the Union here, and some cavalry for the rebels or Confederates here. And then, this is the whole rest of that set of maps, right? It's a big honking scenario. I was, looking at the designer notes and sort of the different strategies that could be taken on and all of this different stuff. And so there were some key points, obviously, on the rail lines, because rail lines are very important in this particular system when you're playing larger games. Cutting the rail line impacts supply and support for the Union and makes life difficult for them in terms of being able to shift forces up to District of Columbia, up to Washington, right? And there's some bridges. These are all bridges that I've marked here. And then there's a ford all the way down here that you can cross at as well. And then Baltimore is all the way up there. And then Gettysburg is somewhere around there, in there somewhere. I can't see it from this distance, but I think that's it right there. So the victory conditions are really interesting. There's a number of different ways you can win the game, and we don't really need to get into all the details on that, but obviously, killing steps is one thing, but control of certain counties counts, having units inside DC count, things of that nature. And the further north you get, and east you get, up into Baltimore and whatnot, then that can make a significant difference as well. So it's interesting, though, to me, when I looked at this and thought, wow, it'd be really cool to see all that maneuver and all that sort of good stuff, even keeping in mind basically you would, if the turn wasn't forced to an end through some sort of mechanism, whether that be double ones or whatever the case may be, which doesn't apply in this particular scenario, I don't believe anyway. If there's no forced end turn, each formation could basically activate 3 times, because you would go from no fatigue to fatigue 1, fatigue 2, and fatigue 3. And after fatigue 3, you don't want to go to fatigue 4, because then you're going to be carrying around a fatigue point, because you can recover 3 at most each turn, I believe, roughly. And so then, of course, you could, so you can move 3 times. And you roll a d6 for your movement. So let's say you averaged a 3. That means you could have 9 movement points moving along roads or trails, as they may be. And but you could also do strategic movement, which will give you a boost to your movement points, and you can move a little bit further and a little bit faster at the expense of course, of accumulating fatigue. And so I was looking at this and wondering, well, gee, why, wouldn't it be beneficial to the Union, which has all of its forces here, and the cavalry screen behind it to the left, there's forces here as well, right? They have a modest manpower advantage, 140 strength points to 128 strength points at the very beginning, plus 6 arty points. Why wouldn't they try and seek battle at the earliest opportunity? So I am curious about how this is going to work out, and I almost started setting it all up just to see what would happen if the Union kind of went and got after it immediately. But the trick is, of course, when you start digging into the scenario rules, there are lots of inhibitors and restrictions for the leadership of the Union that will play into you not really wanting to make that sort of aggressive maneuver or effort in the early parts of the scenario. So it's somewhat of a race. I guess the Confederates are looking for a way to get around this force, cross this first major river, and I think I pronounced that wrong earlier on. I'm trying to read it sideways here. Rappahannock, Hannock, depending on how you want to butcher that. You want to get across this river somewhere. There are fords here and different means of crossing, and then you've got a double river or minor river situation here. You have to get across both of those, or come all the way up here, but that's probably not ideal because you're really going away from your target. The most direct route is through the Union, but I'm sure the Union would screen you from making that effort. So it's incumbent upon the cavalry to kind of bust a move, sort of work out how to get by this cavalry set of forces here, and start interdicting and potentially trying to capture bridges way up in the DC area in some way, shape, or form, sort of securing a bridgehead, literally a bridgehead across one of these bridges here before they can be destroyed by the enemy. Now, of course, there's also some garrison forces that are in DC as well, but they're pretty nominal. I'm not counting any of those in that strength point or manpower point count. So interesting stuff. I'm in two minds as to whether or not I really want to try and play this solo. It's a fairly large endeavor. I can imagine the turns would go reasonably quickly. I don't know. Because there's not a lot of hooks in here to end turns quickly, as there were in the last scenario I played with Atlanta is Ours, where we did 15 or 16 turns and pretty quickly, but we had a lot of double ones that ended turns well before their time. So I'm going to keep looking at this and noodling about it and see if it gets me excited enough to want to do something with it since the maps are out. But I just thought I'd share some of that with you if you've never seen the game before or seen this larger scenario set up. It's kind of what it looks like. I know some guys on the Facebook group for the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War that are planning a 6-player campaign gameplay. I think they're all French chaps. They're getting that set up at the moment. So hopefully they'll post some pictures and we'll get to live vicariously through them versus me muddling my way through it. This game, just to wrap it all up, this game uses roads to Gettysburg, Stonewall Jackson's Way, and Here Come the Rebels, I believe, for all the maps. And this is the updated version 2, second edition, or whatever you want to call it. That includes Here Come the Rebels and some other modules as well. So, all right, talk to you guys soon. Ciao.